guys, and welcome back to the Natural Learning Python course. Today, we are going to try and set up Python in a different way because Anaconda gets pretty space hungry and uses a lot of resources, so it'll run pretty slowly. Now, the first step is you go to python.org in your web browser, and then you should see all of this stuff, and then you hover over downloads, and you click on your operating system down here. Now you can also select other platforms if you're on Linux. However, I am on Windows. Now I am personally going to now download Python 3.8.5. However, you can really pick which version of Python. I recommend using a little bit of an older version just because it does help you when you're doing something like working with modules. Now, if you're downloading a newer version, like 3.8.7, then you would just say download Windows Installer 64-bit. For me, though, I am going to hit download Windows x86-64 executable installer. This will make our life a lot easier. Instead of having to go through the web or extract tons of files and tons of stuff, this does it all for us in a nice graphical user interface. So you hit this file down here at the bottom. Now you notice there are two checkboxes. I recommend hitting this. I'm not going to hit this. I'm just going to not really install Python since I already have it in my system. But this one is very important to check. It'll make our setup a lot easier. Sorry. And what this will basically do is we can run Python commands straight from the command prompt, which will allow us to install packages very easily. And say you need to do some testing in a directory, then you can just hit Python and it'll be a lot easier. Now, you can choose to customize the installation. I recommend just staying with whatever's checked. And then you hit install now. Mine will say setup failed because I already have Python. Now, once you've installed that, we are going to go over to Visual Studio Code. Now, there are actually two options for an IDE. I recommend Visual Studio Code, but there's another option called Sublime Text. Now, I would just go with Visual Studio Code as it is more of an IDE rather than just a text editor, and it has a lot more features. It is not nearly as space hungry as Anaconda, so just hit download, and if you need a different operating system, hit it right here, and then hit whatever you need to do. Now I am just going to hit download for Windows Stable Build, and this right here is just a little bit about it. These are some of the top extensions. Basically, Visual Studio Code has these things called extensions, which kind of customize your setup and help for debugging certain things. And as you can see, the very most popular one is Python. I think I love that because Python is my favorite too. Now, you open up the file, hit I accept the agreement. Then, I recommend checking these boxes, as what you can do is you can just right click on a Python file and hit open with code, or really any file. Now, this just pins it to the front, so if you go to the desktop, you can just double click on it. This is personally your choice. So if you go down here, you'll notice there's a desktop icon if you click that. Now, I'm just going to continue here, and I am going to also hit add to path. It's pretty important if you want to open it through a command prompt or you're working with a little more advanced things. Just keep it checked. And next up, you hit install. Let it do all of this magic as you just sit and wait. It should be pretty quick because it's not very big of an application. And as you can see, it's almost done. And now you'll notice Visual Studio Code right here. And that's it. Now, the box is checked, so it'll launch Visual Studio Code already. Now this right here is my IDE. So, as you can see, I already have a folder open here. If not, just go to File, Open Folder, and I am just going to hit Tests here. And I'm going to create a file called hello.py. Make sure it has this py extension if you want to work with Python. Every time you create a file, make sure it has .py. This will basically just allow us to code in Python, and make sure it's not a text file. Now, hit these 4 boxes right here, and you'll notice I have a lot of extensions. That's personally just my thing. Go ahead and hit Python. It might already be there. Make sure you've installed this. It's a very important extension. And then hit Prettier. That should be all I need to do. This will just make your code look really good. It's one of the most popular things. And that's all you need to do. Now, I personally should already have this. However, you may have a pop-up saying no Python interpreter is selected. In that case, hit select Python interpreter, and now you might have one that says in parentheses conda. Click the other one. Click the one that just says Python 3 point whatever version you have. And then when you click run, yours will most likely be a green play button. And then it will do a small little command. Now, mine actually won't run anything right now because I don't have anything. But I'm going to say print hello world. And then we run it. And as you can see in the terminal itself, it says hello world. Now, there's also something called the Debug Console, which I'll talk about later. This is basically for debugging a program. And this is great because you can see all the info about your program. I'll talk about this in another video. And that's almost really it for VS Code. Now you can go to Explorer, you can open a folder, and you'll notice I have this stuff. You won't have this stuff, just don't worry about it. But this is all you need to know. And now, whenever you need to create a file, let's say you need to create one called while loops, hit new file, and I'm going to call mine while loops.py as a random example. And there you go. Now, let's say you also just randomly created a new file, which happens. Then you'll want to make sure you have this .py extension. There's a lot of options here. Just hit Python, or it'll auto-select probably .txt or text file. Just put the .py extension and it should work. Now, that's about it. You can hit save. Now, in my case, I already have the while loops.py as an example. In fact, I'll just delete it. And as you can see, that's about it for VS Code. So now, whenever you code, you open up Visual Studio Code instead. And actually, if you want it to be very accessible, right-click and hit Pin to Taskbar. Now, what this will do is, whenever you close Visual Studio Code, you can see this right here is still there. And so all you have to do is click on that button once, and it completely opens up wherever you left off. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And as always, this was NitroLearn.